Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Down to Earth Astronomy. This is another Q&A video, and today we'll be looking at life in space and whether I believe there is life in space. The easy answer, of course, is I don't know, but we can do a lot. We can make a few assumptions to get a better understanding of what are the actual chances that we can find life in space or that it's even there. Before we start, I should say that I am not a biologist. I have not studied biology. My background is astrophysics. So I'll be trying to take an astrophysicist point of view to this question. Just so you know, I'll try to present the facts that we know and some of the assumptions we make when we are searching for life. And then hopefully at the end of the video, you will be able to draw your own conclusion. So, before we start, we need to figure out what life actually is. This might sound like an easy question. I mean, life is just anything living, right? But it's not as simple as that. We try to put up criteria that needs to be fulfilled in order for something to be regarded as life or as a living thing. One of these criteria, for instance, is reproduction. So we say that life needs to be able to reproduce. Again, this is a fair assumption, I think. But again, if we look at, for instance, a mule is a half horse, half donkey, and mules, as a species, is not able to reproduce. So, from these criteria, there are several others, but from just the criteria that life needs to be able to reproduce, a mule is not a living thing. So clearly, these criteria are flawed. So instead, what I'm going to do is going to look at life from a physicist's point of view. If we look at what humans are made up of, you can see that we are pretty much made up of hydrogen, oxygen, carbon, and a little bit of nitrogen and some other heavier materials. So we are pretty much just a shell of carbon with some water inside. That is the basic building blocks that human is made of. And actually, all types of life that we know are carbon-based. Everything we know is built up of carbon. And this is important later on. So keep this in mind, because I think this is a fair assumption that if we're going out to look for life, that it's a fair assumption to say we're looking for carbon-based life. And this is because of the way that materials are produced out in the universe. So if we flash up the periodic table here, the early stars, right after the Big Bang, the first star that would form would most likely have been very, very huge, very warm, blue stars. They would have a short lifetime, and they would only be consisted of hydrogen and helium, because that was the only thing that was available in the early universe. This, of course, also means that the leftovers from the planet will only be hydrogen and helium, so you would only be able to form gas planets from these early stars, if you would even have the time to form planets. The star wouldn't explode before planets had the time to form. But these stars, they initially begin to burn hydrogen into helium through the process shown here. Once all the hydrogen at the core is depleted, the core will begin to collapse since the radiation pressure is no longer there, and the core will heat up. And as it heats up, helium fusion can begin, and from helium we can begin to form carbon. So again, we see that some of the earliest materials actually formed is carbon. So this is a fairly common material in the universe, and this is why I think that going out looking for carbon-based life is a fair assumption. The rest of the materials are then some of them produced through what's called the C&O cycle, shown here, where you can see we can produce the oxygen, nitrogen, and other heavier materials. And then we can go through several other cycles up until we reach iron. From fusion processes, we can get the heavier and heavier materials. And then through supernova explosions, we can get the even heavier atoms. So this is how stuff is made in the universe. But again, back to the early stars. So the early stars would have a short lifetime, but they would produce some of these heavier elements. And in astrophysics, we say that a star is polluted, and it's polluted by the amount of material that is not hydrogen and helium. So everything apart from hydrogen and helium is regarded as pollution. Not that it is a bad thing necessarily, but we can use the pollution or the metallicity of the star to tell us something about the star's age. So the more polluted the star is, the younger the star is, because as the star goes through the cycle of collapsing in from a gas cloud, burning, creating heavier material, exploding, or just shattering its outer layers back into the cloud, it's all these heavier materials getting mixed up, and next time the star collapses, the heavier material will be mixed in, and the star will be more polluted. So we can use the pollution of the star to say something about the age of the star. And of course, in order for planets with a solid surface to form, the stars, or the gas cloud this star is formed from, need to have gone through several of these iterations, because we need the heavier material in order to form planets with a solid surface. So right after the Big Bang in the first maybe billion years, I don't think we would see any kind of life in the universe, because the materials to form the solid surface planets simply wasn't there. Again, now I make an assumption that we need a solid surface of life to evolve. But again, if we're going out looking for carbon-based life, as far as we know, carbon-based life needs liquid water. Liquid water means we need a solid surface. So therefore, I think it's a fair assumption to say we need a solid surface for life to evolve. Now, this type of star produced is important as well, because the building blocks of life are these amino acids. And when we look into these planetary clouds that stars are made from, we actually see these amino acids. So the building blocks for life is out there. We know that. We can see them from spectral analysis of these clouds. So we have the building blocks to build the proteins that life is made up of. But the problem is that these amino acids are very sensitive to UV radiation. So if we have a huge star, for instance, huge blue star, they emit a lot of UV radiation. This means that all these amino acids in the solar system will most likely be destroyed before the planets and life have any chance to actually evolve. So the star needs to have the right size so that it doesn't emit too much UV radiation, but also that it is hot and bright enough to actually produce the energy needed to evolve life. So if we have the right type of star formed from the right type of cloud with enough heavier materials to form the heavier planets, the planets also need to be at the right distance. And this is where I want to talk about what's called the Goldilocks zone, or the habitable zone. The Goldilocks zone is a zone around a star, a distance from a star, in which planets with a solid surface could have liquid water on the surface if the atmosphere is right. Here in this image is shown the Goldilocks zone for Earth and for a system called Kepler-22. And the orbit of Kepler-22b, which is the second star in that system, is shown. We see that is well within the habitable zone. And we can see from the schematic of our solar system that Earth and Mars is within the habitable zone. So clearly, just because a planet has a solid surface and is within the habitable zone doesn't mean that life evolves. We know that once there was water on Mars. But Mars was simply too small. So Mars cooled off, meaning that its magnetic field was too weak to shield the planet from the solar wind. The solar wind then stripped the upper atmosphere of Mars. This lowered the surface density of the atmosphere, the surface pressure. As the surface pressure dropped, so did the boiling point of water. And this just the surface pressure just kept dropping until the surface pressure on Mars was so low that all the oceans and rivers on Mars would begin to boil, evaporate into the atmosphere, and get blown into the universe, into the solar system with the solar wind. So the planet also needs to have a certain size in order to be able to protect itself from the solar winds and to have a dense enough atmosphere. So if the star is made up from the right type of cloud, it has the right size, we have planets at the right distance, the planet has the right size, the atmosphere is right. If all these things fall into place, then maybe we have a chance that life to evolve. But this is where we have the biggest if. Because even if we find a planet where all these things are correct, we don't know what the chances are that life would evolve. Well, it might be close to 100%. I personally think that is unlikely, because as we see on Mars, the conditions have been there at some point. Yet we don't see remnants of a thriving culture on Mars. So there might have been some small single-cell organism that we haven't been able to find yet. I don't know. No one really knows. But at least intelligent life, I think it's pretty safe to say that there's never been intelligent life on Mars. So where was that? Yeah. So even if the right conditions are there, we don't know what the chances are that life would evolve. It could be close to 100, it could be 50, it could be 0.0001%. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. No one really knows. We have not enough data to actually make a reliable guess. But my guess is it's probably on the low side, the chance. So if we fulfill all the conditions, the right type of star, not too much UV radiation, so we don't destroy the amino acids, and all these things are fulfilled. And if life then evolves on a planet, then the life needs to evolve to a point where we are able to detect it from a distance. This means the life must have either send out enough strong signals for us to detect them, or have such an impact on the planet that we can detect it from here on Earth. Because there are lots of planets out there. We are finding lots of Earth-like planets that seems to have the right conditions, but they're so far apart we have no chance to ever go to all of them. So the life, our best bet is to try and find life that has evolved to a point where they have a noticeable effect on the planet. And I think those chances are very, very slim. I mean, we might just have a planet with some basic plant life, maybe a few animals. And I think that is why we are not seeing aliens walking the street right now. First, because of the vast distances. I mean, I saw a prediction where actually an astrophysicist made a prediction saying that on average there should be a couple of 100 light years between planets with intelligent life. This is of course a very, very crude approximation, and I don't know how much I believe in that, but let's just say that it's good for now. If we say there's a couple of 100 light years between planets with life on, it's gonna take several generations to get there. If we're able to travel just at the speed of light with I mean, even with the fastest spacecraft, I mean, it's taken 30 years to send a probe outside our own solar system. I mean, it's taken 30 years and we have barely left our front yard. So us finding life in space in the next few generations, I think, is unlikely. Life finding us, I don't know. That's a big if. Again, I think the distances are too great for it to be viable for life to move between planets. So to end this up, I believe that due to the vast amount of planets out there, I think there must be life out there somewhere. I'm not sure if it's intelligent, but I think it's out there somewhere. But I'm not sure we are ever going to find it simply because of the vast distances. I hope you liked this video. I hope it was interesting. If you have any other questions that you think I should try and elaborate on, try to answer, please drop a comment down below. Remember to subscribe, like the video, and until next time, this is Down to Earth Astronomy. Have a good one.